said I've walked a mile in his shoes and I know how he feels. I do have to get it here and there.
The History of Produce by me. Take a look at the watermelon on the left, and then take a look at the watermelon on the right. This 17th century painting by Giovanni Stanchi shows many differences between watermelons then and watermelons now. The watermelon on the left has very thick rinds, a lack of sweet pulp, and big black seeds. Today I'll talk about why these differences are present and a little bit more about the history of produce. Today I will talk about the origins of different produce items, what different produce items used to look like, and how produce came to be as it is today. The National Science Foundation states that about 10,000 years ago in Turkana, a study of Homo sapiens teeth showed that they ate a 50-50% diet split in shrubs, plants, and trees, and the other 50% being meat. Another example of humans eating meat is 800,000 years ago. Evidence of a tribe of hunter-gatherers showed that they lived off of about 55 different food plants. This shows that however long humans have been around, they have been eating vegetation. Farming started in Southeast Asia about 10,000 years ago. 1,000 years after this, it was widespread that farming civilizations were a thing. One of the first farming civilizations was ancient Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia was one of the first societies to document jobs. One of these jobs were farmers. They also documented what crops they grew and how many crops they collected at the end of each harvesting season. The crops that they grew were ancient corn, rice, and barley. The first fruits that appeared in records appeared about 4000 BC. These fruits were the olive and the date. After this, humans began to domesticate fruit and trade them. Trading between civilizations ended up with fruits and vegetables being placed in new areas. One of the biggest examples of this is the Columbian Exchange. The Columbian Exchange sent many vegetables and fruits from the Americas to Europe. These crops included sugarcane, sweet potatoes, hot chilies, and more. These vegetables and fruits became not only a part of European diets, but also European farms. Fruits used to look a lot different than they did today. Fruits used to be low in flesh and high in seed, like the banana on the right. Fruits evolved this way because they wanted to have high seed counts and low flesh. They wanted to have just enough flesh so that an animal would come and eat it and then eventually defecate the seeds, resulting in reproduction for the plant. If you were to plant the right banana into the ground, you would have a decent chance of eventually having a banana tree sprouting. You would not have the same luck with a modern banana like that one. The National Science Foundation also states that ancient corn has come from an ancient plant called teosinte. Teosinte was found in southern Mexico and looked a lot different from the corn you are used to today. Teosinte had only about 5 to 12 kernels, and these kernels all were encased in a very hard shell. This shell made it so that when it was ingested by an animal or a bird, that the hard shell would be digested and not the seed. The ancestor to the ancient watermelon looked a lot different than it does today. Even compared to the 17th century painting, it was different. They were very small. They were only about 2 inches in diameter, similar to a tennis ball. When you were to cut it open, it would look nothing like a normal melon that you would see today. It would have very little amounts of white flesh and lots of seeds. This flesh tasted bitter and was not very pleasant to eat. Produce has changed. Scientists and farmers have many different ways that they have used to change produce. They've used different methods such as domestication, selection, and hybridization. Slowly but surely, using these methods, scientists and farmers have made many different ways to slowly make new plants. These plants, over time, became larger and more convenient. One of the greatest examples of this is Brassica oleracea, also known as ornamental cabbage. This cabbage is the ancestor to 6 different other vegetables you probably would know today. These vegetables include cabbage, Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi, kale, broccoli, and cauliflower. If you wanted to breed for bigger terminal buds, eventually you would end up with cabbage. If you wanted to breed for bigger lateral buds, you would eventually end up with Brussels sprouts. If you wanted to breed for bigger stems, you'd end up with kohlrabi. Bigger leaves would get you up with kale, and bigger stems and flowers gave you broccoli and cauliflower. I hope this information has provided you insight on how produce has changed. I hope you now have learned learned a little bit more about the origins of different produce items, what different produce items used to look like, and how produce has changed. I hope now that when you're walking down the grocery store in the produce aisle, you know a little bit more about the items that you might purchase.